For those of you who've watched the channel any length of time, you know I'm into repetition. I say things numerous times. That's, down to me and my own personal tick I have with my own dyslexia, etc., etc. But one of the things I do quite often, and this is to try and get the point across in multiple videos, is I have certain phrases to try and hammer it home that, there are certain issues that we need to deal with. One of them that I've often repeated is that currently in this parliament, we cannot have proper discussions and debates around Brexit or anything to do with that subject because of the current government, the way it is made up, and the fact that there are still a lot of Brexit ultras still in control of some key positions. Now, you might think, oh, well, there's no one. Well, there are. There's no one, really, really crazy, shall we say, for Brexit. But oh no, there is, because this is where we come to the European Scrutiny Committee, chaired by one, of course, William Cash, one of the arch big Brexit ultras himself. And of course, when you are in control of such a committee like that, you get to decide what the committee hears, who can come, and who you can, decide not to invite, shall we say, as you'll see in a moment, to this committee to sort of give evidence. And just a few weeks ago, you may also remember, we talked about, the potential that Gibraltar might finally, after all this time, be getting some sort of Brexit deal, that it was in there, that it was touchline time, that there was, they just needed to dot the I's and cross the T's, but it looked like there was a deal finally in reach. After all this time, it was finally going to get done. Well, that now seems to be very, very much in doubt, as, of course, the European Scrutiny Committee has now called forward David Cameron to discuss this very thing about Gibraltar, even insisting that these talks be halted until these full documents and everything and all the negotiations can be fully scrutinized by this committee. And it's all about holding it up. All about holding it up, because they do not want people to realize that actually the UK and the EU working together, which in many cases, a lot of the stuff from this new Gibraltar deal would actually be massively beneficial to both parties. And that's why I keep on repeating that phrase, that we can't have any good, proper Brexit sort of conversations, debates, talk about policy, or even the impact that Brexit is having on the UK, because we have still committees like this controlled by Brexiteers. And that ain't going to change, at least until after the next election. So, as always, before we do get more talking into about this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a notification link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. Like I say, there's the YouTube thank you button, and of course, there's the Pony Club down below as well. Don't forget, come and join us tonight on Geoscope. We're going to try and make Graham a bit more happy with the 10 points to be more optimistic about the US general election. So hopefully we can relieve, the pressure on Graham of him thinking about this. But as always, like I say, do go check those out down below. And of course, do remember to click the like and share button. And thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel. So let's crack on into this. This coming from The Independent, with the title of Brexit Row, as Cameron admits EU border could soon be policed, policing Gibraltar. EU, as Cameron admits, EU could soon be policing. We get that right. Let me put my teeth back in. Could be policing, so soon could be policing Gibraltar border. There. Get me teeth back in. So, here we go. So, David Cameron has now admitted that the plan for the EU Frontex border guards to police the entry into Gibraltar to allow a, quote, fluid border between the Rock and Spain. The Foreign Secretary was giving evidence to the European Security Committee, which has now raised serious concerns over the impact on UK sovereignty with the proposed treaty. Because that's what they do every single time. Just go, oh my word, this is just impacting our sovereignty. It's the same song and dance we have heard over and over again. And I think it's Robert. I think it's Robert Ficardo. I think the governor of Spain, of not Spain, Gibraltar. He wanted to come before this committee to give evidence, but William Cash just would not invite him. you know, and that's how this committee works, so that there is no, reality sort of given what's going on here about why this stuff is being negotiated, about how they've come to these deals, because they don't want to hear the reality of it all, because they are still very, very much drinking the Brexit Kool-Aid. So back to this. So the row has now obviously broken out because of the need for Gibraltar to come to a longer border solution with the EU as a result of Brexit. Had the UK voted to remain in the EU, the free travel positions would have not have been a problem, with about 15,000 crossings a day, and the Gibraltar and UK governments are now seeking a solution. Gibraltar opposed Brexit with a 96% voting Remain. Gee, I wonder why. Anyway, Cameron said there is now still a chance that no deal will be signed unless it ties in with all the lines of the British and Gibraltar government. He told MPs, if a deal isn't possible within our red lines, he will not agree a deal. If the deal isn't right, then we will not sign it. Naming the red lines, Cameron said that the British military base must continue to operate as it does now. Also, every inch of Gibraltar remains fully UK sovereign territory. And finally, the Gibraltar government fully agrees to it. Well, guess what? Gibraltar government fully agrees with it. William Cash wrote a letter to Cameron and even Rishi Sunak, somehow saying that Spain was going to block UK military personnel from going to like the naval base in Gibraltar or even the air base, and that this is somehow going to massively negatively affect like NATO. When Spain is in NATO, it is a NATO ally. Why are they going to do something that would so negatively affect like another NATO ally, especially at this point in time with everything that's going on with Russia? But there you go. Anyway, Cameron, though, has angered some MPs by saying he supports the Gibraltar's government push for a fluid border. And this is what we have currently seen at the moment. And this I am fully on board with. I think what Gibraltar has asked for, what even is being currently negotiated, everything seems to be pretty fine. It looks to be a really good deal. But of course, these Brexiteers cannot just admit that, oh no, we're going to have, you know, quote, Johnny Foreigner policing those borders. Again, what's the big deal about this? It doesn't negatively affect us in either major way, but of course they see this as being some sort of ultimate evil. But in the reality, what's happening, they are working on that border. That means we ain't paying for any of that border security. They are doing it pretty much themselves. You'd think they'd be quite happy about that, but apparently not. Anyway, so he said that he supports the Gibraltar's government push for a fluid border, which would have it operate as adjacent to the Schengen area under the free movement rules. He insisted that this meant that EU checks will need to take place in Gibraltar, and likened it to the Eurostar border checks by the French at St Pancras, station in London. Again, you notice they don't object to something like that taking place in London. But there you go. However, the Peterborough MP Paul Bristow said, not Paul Burrell. I think he was a butler to someone, but never mind. Getting my Pauls confused. Anyway, Paul Bristow said, you would have to accept that a critical difference is that while the Spanish claim sovereignty over Gibraltar, the French do not claim sovereignty over St. Pancras yet. we've addressed and broached this issue so many times that all you would have to do to ease any Spanish claim over this is just say, okay, we're going to have a referendum. Guess what? Every single time one has been done, or they've done polls about this, Gibraltar unanimously is over 90% in favor of staying in the UK. At what point is Spain going to do after that? Are they going to actually invade and take Gibraltar? But there you go. When pressed by, of course, the former cabinet minister, David Jones, the foreign secretary, was also unable to rule out access to Gibraltar by Spanish police, quote, in hot pursuit for surveillance purposes, which are obviously part of the Schengen Accords. He said that these are all part of the discussions. So, as you can see, stuff is going on at the moment. These things are being talked about. They are being talked and being negotiated with. There has been constantly this push, and we've heard it time and time again, that, oh, the EU isn't interested in negotiating with us. It's not, it's not interested in us. But here you once again have a clear indicator that, yes, the EU is still very much aware of the UK, is negotiating with us, and those types of things are ongoing. And yet, when I talk about that, of that happening, or when I point to things like this happening, I'm called an absolute madman. I'm called delusional. But hey, there you go. It's difficult being right, it really is. Anyway, but another series of clashes with Jones and Cameron insisted that to have a fluid border, this required the EU Frontex border guards to be present in Gibraltar, and an alternative option of a separate border checks on the Spanish territory was just not viable, pointing out that if full Schengen checks had come into place, that things will only get worse at the border, he warned. He said that the status quo is just not an option. And we talked about that the last time whenever we've covered Gibraltar. It just has just too much going on to be able to maintain a status quo sort of border. The fact that there is no garbage, there's no dump in Gibraltar. All the trucks come in from Spain, collect it, and then go back to Spain. There's just so much stuff that could just be done here. And it is just talking, it is negotiating, is what I've always advocated for. And, countries working together to come to solutions is always the best option for these things. But I'm told, apparently, that's just crazy thinking. But again, there you go. So currently there are about over 15,000 daily crossings on the Spanish border with Gibraltar, and waits can be as long as 6 hours. Cameron also accepted that Gibraltans, quote, have every right to be suspicious of the Spanish intentions, and that he agreed that there have been, quote, problems with Spain recently preventing the Red Arrows doing a display on the rock. MPs also raised concerns. However, the Greek minister also recently referred to Gibraltar as Spanish in relation to talks with the EU. Is it the biggest problem in the world if we lose Gibraltar? No. There's a British military base there. There's an RAF base. Honestly, Spain is probably going to want to keep those, and we would probably do a deal with Spain because that presence there is a significant, military position. It is good for all of NATO. It means that Spain doesn't itself have to spend an extra load of money relocating bases, etc., to help, have stuff in the Mediterranean. All these things, as I said, these can all be, negotiated. It can all be done. A lot of, by the way, the push for Gibraltar, by the way, does come from Spanish, far right, alt right types. But there you go. It honestly is. It's doable. It is negotiable. But at the end of the day, you have seen time and time again that this population there has voted overwhelmingly to remain UK. And if this, let's say, comes up in negotiations or, quote, becomes a stopping point for us joining the EU in the future, well, we'll just have a referendum. And then what happens when once again we get that result of 90% say no, we want to remain UK, please? What does Spain do then? You know, it's only got really two options when it comes to that. But they can they can complain about it as much as they want, but that's what you do. You just say, well, we're going to have a referendum. Oh, look, 90% still want to stay with the UK. Here you go, EU. And then how does that make Spain look then to the rest of the EU? I'm I'm sorry, but that's just the reality. But anyway, there you go. I don't know how many times I've covered that, but yeah, there we go. Anyway, so anyway, let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. And of course, as always, do remember to click the like and share button on your way out. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.